Very cool. We just came back from a delegation, and I was going to save the recap because I knew Shabbos was coming on. Let's do a little unpacking of initial thoughts, because I remember you're coming. You when I met Shabbos on this thing, he's like, "I'm not an influencer. What is this?" Because there's a difference between people who are like on. There was like it was well casted because you had people who are really on Instagram, some purely for advocacy purposes, and some from accidental advocates, sort of like myself, and then Twitter people like you, Eyal Yacobi. Who like have names, but in a particular sort of way. They're not like making content, but Twitter is its own kind of universe. So initial thoughts.
Yeah, I don't have a beauty product to sell. I'm not on social media professionally. The only thing I've gotten from Instagram is someone sent me this kippah, which is pretty cool. So yeah, I was a bit hesitant when I'm a paid Zionist shill.
Yeah.
I mean, they brought us to the King David Hotel, so we are in their pockets.
I give you all this kippah for all of your service. Thank you. Thank you.
Please don't thank me.
So I was somewhat hesitant because I'm really not a social media or content creator. I'm a student and I give speeches and I complain a lot, but ultimately I'm not really creating content. But it really was a fascinating trip. And we spoke on the bus a lot about, is this preaching to the echo chamber? Are we really creating a difference? But the reality is twofold, and you sort of enlightened me to this, which is number one, sometimes it's not necessarily a bad thing. I wouldn't say preaching to the choir, but really strengthening and providing enthusiasm to the base. But on the other hand, many of us really are reaching a non-Jewish or a non-Zionist or non-pro-Israel community. And it really was somewhat empowering to be able to go to Nir Oz, to meet with Irit, who tells us about how she was hiding behind a locked door, hearing the sounds of the RPG. And we can go back to our communities and say, we saw this with our own eyes. This was her experience, and we want to tell that story. So it was somewhat empowering, and I'm really happy that I was able to take part in that mission.
Yeah, I mean, there was often this thing kind of looming over some people's heads, sometimes like things to be conscious of, which is all this time that all of us have been talking about anti-Semitism in Israel over the last year and a half since October 7th. You get this negative backlash of people who are like, who's paying you? Zionist shill. He's working for the IDF. None of that is true. None of that was ever true.
I wish we were getting paid.
Until now. No, but so then when you're invited by the official government of Israel and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to go and, show what's going on, tell the story or whatever, or give an experiential perspective of what's going on, you can hear the idea of like, this is just propaganda. I mean, the government's bringing you around. So everything sort of is invalidated by that if you let that criticism get to you. And at the same time, who cares? At the same time, they're not telling us what to say. And Israel is this weird informal place. It's this tiny little country. Israel is the Jewish state, meaning it's part of this community of Am Yisrael, of the nation of Israel. We're going there as almost like an expression of gratitude, like bringing family members of the Jewish community and non-Jewish community and people who've advocated. And up until this point, no one asked me to do it. And everyone was like, don't tag Israel, don't show that it's Israel. Some people were concerned about if we show that we're through the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, that somehow invalidates what we're doing. And I'm like, if you try to hide what we're doing, then they're winning the argument.
Yeah, I would also say that even though that it was a government-sponsored trip, even though we weren't being paid, it does not negate the reality on the ground.
Correct.
So regardless of who's paying, who's sponsoring, when we went to the Kerem Shalom border crossing, for example, and we saw some of the dozens of the more than 800 humanitarian aid trucks that are going into Gaza on a daily basis, that's real. That's happening on a daily basis. And people need to be able to tell that story. And they told us, I'm sure it's fine to say now, but they told us, we don't really want Western journalists to see this. We don't really want people in the Israeli public to necessarily know about it because they might be really angry when they see that we are providing 800 humanitarian aid trucks into Gaza. And we spoke about this. There was a young Israeli soldier standing to the left of me as we're watching these trucks go in. And I asked her, how do you feel? Are you conflicted? She says, of course I'm conflicted because my cousin's a hostage. I said, what? She says, my cousin is Idan Alexander, who's the American hostage still being held in captivity by Hamas.
Wild.
So that's a real story. And I think the Israeli government does themselves a tremendous disservice when they don't animate or they don't amplify those narratives because at the very least, it humanizes what's happening in Israel. But it also shows that so much of the propaganda we see from the anti-Semitic and anti-Israel coalition is just that. It's propaganda. It's not based in fact.
Yeah. I wanted to just add that I'm curious, Michael, your take on this, because is there something that always bugged me throughout as we're doing it, that this posture of look, we are good. look, is sort of already ceding the territory to like, we need their approval in order to be justified in what we're doing and what Israel's doing in defending itself. And not only does Israel have to defend itself, it has to defend defending itself. And from that position, I was always icked out. So I tried to take a different perspective and just share how I was honestly feeling about stuff. But it wasn't for the purposes of gaining the approval. It's more, that's why I think turning to the echo chamber that already accepts Israel's justified defense of itself, it's more like, you can feel okay. This is for strength. This is for solidarity. Not, oh, you hate Israel? Well, look at Kerem Shalom, the crossing. And they're like, oh, you know, forget Intifada revolution. I am so down with Israel because I just didn't realize, as if their positions are based in fact and reality, don't give the satisfaction of showing reality as if that's going to change their mind or persuade them.
Yeah, well, you guys got a front seat to, I guess, the inner workings of a process that's not working very well, right? Like, did you, I mean, like, they haven't done
the Hasbara or whatever?
Yeah, they haven't done a good job.
Which we did not use that word ever.
Translating this war to the rest of the world so far.
It's definitely true. Having said that, I remember on the last day, as we were headed into the airport, it kind of struck me, regardless of your political ideologies, regardless of your feelings about how the war is being operated, ultimately what this trip accomplished is we showed up. And I think that's one of the messages of, regardless of how you feel about Israel, show up. Just go there, and you can ask questions, and you can be confrontational, and you don't have to agree with the government or certain policies, but just seeing it in your own eyes. And that, of course, is really animated by the fact that so many on our college campuses, certainly at the Ivy Leagues, they don't show up. They've not been to these places. They have not explored what it means to be Israeli, what it means to navigate having rockets being fired into your home on an almost daily basis. But
do you really believe that,
I honestly do. I honestly do. No, because people often say, well, look, a lot of these people are not interested in engagement. They're interested in their political ideologies and their echo chamber. And you're not going to be able to sway or convince them. And I think that's certainly true for about 10 to 20% of the campus or 10 to 20% of the populace. But there's like 80 to 90% of college students, of the American people, that either they don't really know, or if we're being more honest, they don't really care. Yeah. And if we can somehow get those people to interact with Israelis, to, pick lettuce on a farm or something, so they can experience Israeli culture, so they can experience Israel as a country, I do think you would be able to capture a lot more hearts and minds.
It definitely highlights for you when you're there in person that, oh my God, all these people screaming across college campuses are so passionate and so disengaged. They have no skin in the game. They don't really care. They care about caring about something. And they're getting behind this as the flavor of the month, because once you're there, you realize there's this asymmetry here. Those of us advocating for Israel are very connected, are here in person, have family here, and we're arguing against an ignorant mob of zombies that don't.
Yeah. Well, maybe you could tell us this. I also imagine the college encampments as most 99% like white chicks. I mean, having
white doughy lesbians.
Are there more people literally connected with family or themselves from like Gaza, like more than we realize?
Well, just quantitatively, there aren't a lot of Palestinians on college campuses, especially on Ivy League universities.
They were displaced.
So exactly, they were displaced from the campus. Yeah. So yes and no. A lot of the encampment leaders were the stereotypical, almost comical, blue-haired lesbians. You definitely had a lot of that. You also had a lot of Arab students. Students. The Muslim Student Association was, of course, very passionate. Right. But to be, I don't say fair because that's not the right word, but to animate this in I think a kind of scary way, it really created a broad coalition of peoples and groups who really don't see eye to eye on most issues. Palestine really is this omni-cause to the left. And I saw this great tweet once that...
What is omni-cause?
An omni-cause. In all purposes. I understood it. I haven't heard the word. It's a good word. It's a Harvard word. Omni-cause, right?
I don't want to brag or anything.
Yeah, like an all-purpose cause that they can all get behind?
Exactly. Palestine is sort of the last piece of the puzzle. If you care about settler colonialism, if you care about reproductive rights, if you care about LGBTQ plus equality, then Palestine is the key to all of that, even though, of course,
a lot of abortion clinics in Gaza, but
exactly. Even though, of course, that isn't the case. But somehow, if we can create an Israeli government that is at its knees, if we can liberate Palestine. I mean, people talk in the classrooms at Harvard and Columbia and NYU of genuinely the people of Gaza returning, even though they weren't there to begin with, but returning to Tel Aviv and Jerusalem and eating the oranges from the orchards, and all the Jews have gone back to
Jaffa.
Brooklyn, right? They genuinely believe that this is a realistic timeline that can actually happen. And that's why you have a group based in New York called Within Our Lifetime. They very much see the eradication of the Jewish state as a plausible political goal that could be achieved in the next few years. And
are there any other states they want to dismantle?
No, just
the Jewish
just
one?
Israel.
Interesting.
I mean, to me, one of the most fascinating protest slogans during the encampments was not the Intifada, was not River to the Sea, was when they started chanting, "I believe that we will win." And I don't actually think the media really picked up on that. But to me, that really solidified that this was a game. There are winners and losers. And if we just disallow Jews entrance to the library, if we just smash a few more windows at Columbia, we will be able to win, that the great omni cause that is Palestine will succeed, and we can have this great march of return where we will unlock the doors in Jerusalem and Tel Aviv and Ra'anana. And they have been deluded into this fantasy, and of course it's propagated by the university professors, it's propagated by our media, and sometimes it's propagated by our policymakers.
Hot damn, spicy meatball. And that's why this guy's up and coming. You heard all that.
You're a damn inspiring speaker, I have to say.
I just complain a lot.
I want to show up.
Yeah,
I should show up.
No,
Just show up.
Just to wrap up on the delegation itself, I felt like you were that. It felt like this little Avengers thing where these different kinds of folks, Lahavdil Avengers, right? We like show up from these different universes of the internet.
Don't sell yourself short.
What?
Don't sell yourself short.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, you're a hero.
Thank you. Well, at one point, Norman Finkelstein came up and tried to snap and kill all of us. Doing the Thanos. He's like, we need balance, and there's nothing you can do. Oh no! I'm trying to think of a good Thanos. My thingies. I want to have. Listen. I want to have Shabbos. The fact that your name is Shabbos is an abomination. I don't even keep the Shabbos.
By the way, did
what
you
about
see
Yontif?
Beitar, this very far right Zionist organization, gave Norman Finkelstein a beeper in the streets of New York 2 days ago.
That's
like
really
an
actual
they
beeper.
bumped into him. Ha ha ha! Very. Oh,
no, it was not laced with explosives, but it was an actual beeper.
That's really
wow! I love that.
Yeah.
That's hilarious. He deserves the ridicule. But what I was saying is, we're pulled from these different corners of the internet, and I'm like meeting people. I'm like, oh, I know you. I know you. Like everyone's had their little sparring moments on Twitter or Instagram. Their little, and it was cool. And it risked being this kind of crazy. Like it wasn't too icky or ego-y or anything. Everything was very substantial.
I remember you saying that, and it was true, because you would imagine there's a lot of ego. People have a significant amount of followers, and maybe we're not worthy, but every single person on that trip were just an absolute delight to meet and to work with, and they're really passionate about what they do.
Yeah.
So, I mean, take a guy like Yechiel Jacobs, the comedian with the wig. When we were at Soroka Hospital, when we were at the Farm to Table, people were really invested in this story and trying to amplify what's going on and what we can do to create a real difference on the ground.
We went to the hospital in Soroka, where that was the hospital on October 7th that everybody came through, because it's the only hospital in the area, and so 800 something casualties coming through all day long.
And they took us to the room where the released hostages will go to if they need for medical intervention. It was
powerful. It was heavy.
Did you ever just look around the room at any points and be like, I finally found my friends?
Me?
Yeah, or any of you. Like, these are my people.
Look, it's funny because you're immediately thrown back into this old version of yourself when you're on a bus with people. I mean, you're younger than I am, so maybe your memory is fresh.
This was summer camp.
But you're there, and you're like, oh my god! Everyone falls into their roles. There's the guy who gets on the speaker and orders people around. There's the jock. There's the Jap. There's
we were the cool kids in the back of the bus, though. Me, Ari Ackerman, Zach Sage Fox.
No, but
Ayala.
everybody. But it was this cool kind of everyone falls into the sort of old,
the quiet girl.
Yeah, exactly. Who on the end all of a sudden has this huge personality.
Exactly. She gets a little drunk.
And all of a sudden you're like, whoa, you're an animal. No, but it was just super fun and super nonstop. But it was cool. That's why they do it too, to give you, even the creators of the stuff themselves, the content generators of this, have a community, and to all have something in common. Everyone has their ring lights and their things, but it's just you learn from different things on techniques on how people tell stories, and people were throwing up, selfie sticks with these like and like there were lav mics everywhere.
Yeah.
You know? But that was inspiring. It's cool to see like the hustle.
I watched it from afar. I mean, it did highlight this kind of new. I don't even know what to call it. Yeah, it's like a new space. You're not journalists, so like going on a propaganda tour really isn't a problem. You're not journalists.
Yeah.
And like you're influencers, but you're not like speaking directly to the Palestinian community. Like here and there, you're right. You like cross over, and then like you have your moments, like you and Candace, and like you obviously like all over the place at the RNC and everything. But it is sort of this internal like chizuk machine almost. Like I think you called it the base, but like it's important that American Jews support what's going on over there. It's not a small thing,
right?
And so even if you are just talking internally, it's like this cool weird new space that does need support.
And the second we can see that it's for the people who hate us or detest us, I don't think it is, if we're being honest, because they're not going. There's the people who kind of want the solidarity and strength of a message and to be reminded, and then there's that in between who the both messages are coming at. I think it stops there, but there's people who are like, I'm not aware of the situation or what's going on, and I'm hearing all these different messages. So there's like a malleable middle of like people that you're trying to reach also, and then beyond that, I don't worry too much about needing the approval or whatever.
Yeah, that's interesting. I also want to go back to a point you sort of alluded to, which you'll remember, whether it was staying at a hotel, whether it was meeting people from near Oz or going to different organizations, there really was a deep sense of appreciation. And I say it's unwarranted because, what are we doing? We're happy to do this. But even the hotels, there are very few people staying there. There are very few tourists. There are not a lot of people going to the farms. There are not a lot of people going to the places that we went to. And there was such this deep sense of thank you for allying yourselves with us. And again, we would do it anyway. It's just who we are. Not because we're just so great, but the American Jewish community, of course, stands with Israel. And it really, to me, solidifies what we were saying earlier, which is people kind of just need to show up and literally go to Israel. I mean, I remember
bringing your IG clout with you.
Exactly.
Voila!
No, I remember
100,000 follower from my farm is amazing.
No, like after October 7th, it was a little cynical, all these like solidarity missions. It became like a business. You can make a lot of money taking your young Israel to Israel and pick lettuce for a few days. Having said that, a year and a half after, the state of Israel is still suffering. The war is not over.
Yeah.
And I think people really appreciated that Americans were not only showing up, but showing up with like Israeli flags and saying, yeah, we really want to be here. We see ourselves in you. I think people were really touched to hear that.
That's true. You were like one of these people throughout who was like, kind of the thinker, the academic, sort of considering and being all interested.
I was figuring out who I could sue.
Being all reflective and introspective. Maybe the critics have a point.
I gotta sue someone.
It was quite nauseating. But were you nudged in any particular way, let's say politically, about this coming in? Because at the end, you then tweeted when we got home.
Oh yeah, I deleted that tweet though.
Why?
Only because they said that I violated X's terms of service and they would suspend my account. So he's all
like, I'm just gonna sum this story up because this is funny.
This is very bad.
Shabbos and I are going back and forth. He's trying to consider, because the thing is, and we should talk about this also, like you meet these people who were attacked on October 7th. Their relatives, neighbors were murdered. People, their loved ones were kidnapped,
and they drove Gazans into hospitals.
Yeah, and they were just betrayed, and all of that. And at the end of the day, they're still like, we need to find a way to coexist. We need peace. We want to, like, they still kind of hold on to this ideal because they feel like if they let go of that, then Hamas wins and steals their humanity. Now, I disagree with that conclusion, but a lot of the Israeli left almost will never let go of it. And I think it's just that they have to believe it for this optimism because they have to live amongst it and have to figure out a way to coexist. But you were kind of considering that too. But then at the end, he tweets upon getting home, a picture or image of one of the hostages being released surrounded by a mob, and he goes, every single one of these people have to die.
Hey, let me
like
clarify.
The Hamas people.
And even,
let me clarify.
Even Elon is like, too much. Elon Musk. Too much.
No, it was all the Hamas people cheering.
Exactly.
People with phones. You're talking about the people in that image.
Exactly.
So shut up. But he says that, I'm like, Shabby, you come around quick. So